Underneath pretty much every piece of tech you use every day, there's this high-stakes, multi-billion-dollar war being fought. And we're about to take you right to the front lines. This is the story of the 2025 test and measurement industry war. So think about it for a second. Every new AI chip, every leap forward in 6G, all the tech that's shaping our future, it all has to be tested, measured, and proven to work. But what's doing the measuring? What's this invisible engine that makes it all possible? Well, it's the test and measurement industry, or TMI for short. These are the companies that build the incredibly precise tools that, honestly, make all other technology possible. They're the bedrock, the absolute foundation. In 2025, that was the year this whole foundational industry got hit by a massive strategic earthquake. It completely redrew the map and set the stage for a totally new era of competition. So let's break down exactly how it all went down. Okay, so the biggest change was this huge paradigm shift. For decades, the name of the game in TMI was all about hardware muscle. Who could build the fastest, most powerful box? But in 2025, the real battleground shifted, and it shifted decisively to software brains. We're talking integrated, intelligent, software-defined systems. Let's kick things off with the incumbents, the Western giants. You know the names: Keysight, Teledyne, Ametek, and the newly formed Ralliant. Since they already dominated the market, their strategy in 2025 was all about defense. They were basically building an impenetrable fortress. And here's their playbook. Instead of just selling you a powerful piece of hardware, they now sell you an entire ecosystem. They're building these deep software moats that make it super hard for customers to switch. They're aggressively buying up innovative companies, like Keysight's huge $1.4 billion purchase of Spirent. And they're shifting to subscription models to lock in that sweet recurring revenue. The goal? Defend the most profitable frontiers: 6G, AI, and the emerging satellite networks. And they have got the financial firepower to pull it off. Get this. Keysight alone spent over $1 billion on R&D in 2025. That's not just a budget, it's a war chest. It's designed to maintain a generational lead in technology. But, every empire has its challengers. And coming from the East, a new set of disruptors, led by companies like Rigol and Siglent, launched a really high-stakes offensive gambit. Their strategy wasn't defense at all. It was a full frontal assault. Now this chart, this tells such a fascinating story, right? So while Keysight spends way more in actual dollars, the disruptors are investing with just ferocious intensity. Rigol and Siglent poured over 24%, a quarter of their entire revenue, back into R&D. That is a signal of some serious urgency and ambition. They're not just trying to compete here, they're trying to leapfrog the competition entirely. So what's their secret weapon to do that? ASICs. The best way to think of an ASIC is like a custom-built engine for a Formula One car. So instead of using generic off-the-shelf parts that anybody can buy, they are designing their own core silicon from the ground up. And this gives them a massive advantage in both performance and cost. And hey, this isn't just theoretical stuff. Look at Rigol's lineup. Their Cassiopeia chip platform is powering 13 gigahertz oscilloscopes. That puts them squarely in the high-end market. Phoenix and Centaurus are pushing boundaries in other areas too. This is homegrown core technology, and it directly challenges the West's long-held hardware dominance. So you have these two totally clashing strategies: the West's software fortress versus the East's hardware assault. So where did these two armies actually meet? Let's take a look at the battlegrounds of 2025. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this fundamental difference. The West is playing the long game with these software ecosystems and acquisitions. Meanwhile, the East is playing an aggressive ground game with superior hardware driven by R&D. It's a classic battle of two very different philosophies. And here is the result. Just a few years ago, a chart like this would have been completely unthinkable. In the high-end oscilloscope market, a place the West has dominated for decades, Siglent is now competing head-to-head with Keysight at 20 gigahertz, and Rigol is right on their heels with its 13 gigahertz ASIC-powered machine. The hardware gap is closing, and believe me, it is closing fast. But this isn't just a tech war, it's a geopolitical one too. To get ahead of the risk of tariffs and trade barriers, both Rigol and Siglent made a huge strategic pivot in 2025. They opened brand new manufacturing and R&D hubs in Malaysia. This move de-risks their supply chain and gives them a whole new launchpad for global competition. It's a really smart play. So after a year of all these dramatic moves, who actually won? Let's check out the 2025 scorecard and see the victories, the casualties, and what it all means for what's coming next. This quote from HDIN Research really sums it up perfectly. 2025 wasn't a knockout punch for either side. Not at all. Instead, you can think of it as a strategic redrawing of the map. The Western incumbents, they successfully fortified their high-margin software empire, while the Eastern disruptors captured a huge amount of ground in the hardware market. But like in any war, there are casualties. Ralliant, one of those Western giants, had to admit that one of its past acquisitions was worth a staggering $1.44 billion less than they thought. So, why? Well, they bet way too heavily on the explosive growth of the electric vehicle market, and when that growth slowed down, they had to face a massive loss. It's just a brutal reminder of the incredibly high-stakes risks in this industry. And that brings us to the final critical question. The battle lines were definitely redrawn in 2025. So, what are the key trends we should all be watching as this industry war continues into 2026? Okay, here's what to keep an eye on. First, the race to integrate software and hardware. Whoever masters that is going to have a massive edge. Second, the battle to test AI data centers. That's a huge, growing market that needs totally new measurement solutions. Third, what's the impact of those new Malaysian factories going to be? Will they drive down global prices? And finally, keep your eye on new frontiers, like satellite networks, and that fundamental clash between buying your growth through acquisitions versus building it from the ground up through R&D. The war for the foundation of technology is far, far from over. This analysis was powered by data from HDIN Research. And remember, this is for informational purposes only. It's not investment advice. Thanks for joining us as we explored this hidden industrial war. We'll see you next time.